Welcome to the History app. Let's talk about the Israeli Declaration of Independence, May 14th, 1948. Picture this. The British Mandate is officially over. And right then, David Ben-Gurion stands up and proclaims the establishment of a Jewish state in Palestine, to be known as the State of Israel.
It sounds sudden, but really it's the climax of decades of Zionist aspirations. And importantly, it happens just as the international phase of the 1948 Palestine War is about to kick off.
Right, this idea, this dream of a Jewish homeland, it had been building since the late 19th century.
Absolutely. And the Balfour Declaration in 1917, the British saying they supported it, that was a huge moment.
A real turning point.
Definitely. So after World War I, Britain gets the mandate for Palestine. And figuring out its future becomes, well, increasingly complex. There were different partition proposals floated.
Leading up to that big UN partition plan in 1947.
Exactly. Separate Arab and Jewish states. That was the proposal.
And most Jewish leaders, they accepted it, right?
Yeah.
Saw it as a necessary step.
They did, generally, but it's crucial, as you said, that many Arabs did not accept it. It wasn't agreed upon by everyone involved.
Far from it. So the declaration itself, it wasn't just written overnight.
Oh, no. It went through quite a few drafts. A lot of debate. Started with the legal advisors, V. Berenson, and figures like Ben-Gurion really shaped that final text.
And there was a critical vote just before.
Yes, May 12th, the Minhalat Ham, which was like the People's Administration, a sort of provisional government, they had this really intense vote. Declare independence now or accept a truce proposal.
Wow. High stakes.
Incredibly high.
Yeah.
And independence won, but only by a narrow margin, 6 votes to 4.
6-4. That's cutting it fine.
It really was. And some key people couldn't even be there.
Because of the situation in Jerusalem.
Exactly. People like Yehuda Leib Maimon, Yitzhak Grunbaum, they were stuck in the siege, couldn't attend the vote.
And Chaim Weizmann, soon be the first president.
He was strongly in favor. There's that famous, maybe slightly impatient quote attributed to him. What are they waiting for, the idiots?
Huh. Captures the urgency, doesn't it?
It really does. Now, the actual wording, that caused more debate. 2 big issues. Borders and, God.
Okay, let's take borders first. The initial idea was to include the UN plan borders.
That was the thought. But Ben-Gurion was strongly against it.
Why? What was his reasoning?
Well, his argument was essentially, look, we accepted the UN plan, but the Arab states haven't. They're likely going to attack us. If we win, why should we be bound by borders they rejected anyway?
Pragmatic. A bit of a gamble, maybe?
You could say that. Very pragmatic. So the final text deliberately leaves out any mention of specific borders.
Even though some groups, like the revisionists, were pushing for historic borders.
Yeah, they wanted much larger boundaries, but that didn't get included either. So no borders specified.
Okay, and the other big debate, God.
Right. The religious members wanted a clear reference, something like the God of Israel.
But the secular members objected.
Strongly. It was a real clash, right at the moment of creation.
Yeah.
How do you define the state's identity?
So how did they solve it?
A compromise. They landed on the phrase, Sir Yisrael, the Rock of Israel.
Rock of Israel. Why that?
It was ambiguous enough you could interpret it religiously or more secularly as the strength of the Jewish people or the land itself.
Clever. A deliberate ambiguity.
Exactly. Ben-Gurion reportedly pleaded with them not to force a vote on it, saying everyone believed in the Rock of Israel in their own way. And it worked. It passed without a vote.
Amazing. And even the name Israel wasn't a given.
No, they debated other names too, like Zion or Judea, before settling on Israel.
So much being decided right up to the last minute. And the ceremony itself sounds almost clandestine.
It really was. Held in the Tel Aviv Museum, kept very quiet.
Why the secrecy?
Fear the British might try to stop it or that Arab armies would launch an invasion the moment it was announced. Invitations went out super last minute by messenger, telling people to keep it secret.
And the timing, 4 p.m.
That was specific, too, to finish before the Sabbath began at sunset.
And you mentioned the actual scroll wasn't ready.
Not completely. The artist was still working on the decorative part. Ben-Gurion actually read from handwritten notes, folded into thirds.
No way. Handwritten notes for declaring a state.
Yep. And the guy meant to bring the typed text, Zeev Scherf, had this crazy journey.
Oh. What happened?
He had to borrow a car. Turns out the driver didn't even have a license. They got stopped for speeding.
You're kidding. Delivering the Declaration of Independence.
Seriously. Apparently they explained the situation and the police officer just waved them on. Scherf got there just moments before 4 p.m.
That's incredible. Talk about history by the skin of your teeth.
Yeah.
So the ceremony starts.
It began with the orchestra playing Hatikva, which means the hope, the anthem. Apparently, the audience just spontaneously stood up and sang along. Imagine the emotion.
Must have been electric. Then Ben-Gurion reads the declaration.
Reads from his notes.
Yeah.
And then the signing. 25 members of the People's Council signed it.
But not everyone could be there.
Right. 12 were missing. 11 were still trapped in Jerusalem, remember? So they left spaces for them to sign later.
And there was that story about the signature. Herzl Rosenblum.
Ah, yes. Ben-Gurion asked him to sign using his pen name, Herzl Vardi,
Why?
just to have more Hebrew-sounding names on the document at that historic moment. It shows you the level of detail they were thinking about, the symbolism.
Such a small detail, but it says a lot.
After the last signature, the orchestra played Hatikva again. And that was it. The state was declared.
And the immediate outcome.
War. The very next day, neighboring Arab states, Egypt, Jordan, Syria, Lebanon, Iraq intervened. The 1948 Arab-Israeli War began in earnest.
So independence declared straight into a major conflict.
Exactly. But Israel survived, maintained its independence, and actually ended up controlling more territory than the UN plan had allocated.
And the provisional government.
It became the Provisional State Council, laying the groundwork for Israel's permanent government. Many of the signatories became major political figures.
What about international recognition? Did that come quickly?
Relatively, yes. The U.S. offered de facto recognition almost immediately, just minutes after midnight.
Wow, that fast.
Yeah, Truman made the call quickly. Though, interestingly, the Soviet Union was the first country to grant full de jure recognition a few days later.
And the UN.
Israel was admitted to the United Nations in May 1949.
Of course, the aftermath also saw huge population shifts.
Yes, very significant. Large-scale Jewish immigration into Israel, known as Aliyah, and also the displacement of hundreds of thousands of Palestinian Arabs from the area that became Israel, the Nakba, or catastrophe, as Palestinians call it.
Those are profound, lasting consequences.
Absolutely. And one final interesting point. Legally, within Israel, the Declaration of Independence isn't seen as a formal constitution.
Really? How so?
The Knesset, Israel's parliament, considers it more of a statement of principles, guiding values, rather than a binding legal document like a constitution.
That's fascinating. So looking back at all this, the intense debates, the last-minute decisions, the immediate war, what does it all tell us? It really paints a picture of nation building under extreme pressure, doesn't it? A mix of long-held dreams, political maneuvering, and just raw conflict.
It certainly does. The arguments they had then about borders, about identity, about the role of religion, you can see echoes of them even today.
It really makes you think, what is the true power of a declaration like this? Especially when it's made facing such immediate existential threats. And how long really is that journey to fully realize the ideals laid out on paper?